held. Among the pensions being managed by the agency currently are those of Bethlehem Steel employees and U.S. Airways employees. We reported yesterday about a discussion on bond insurers that was going on at the New York offices of the Superintendent of Insurance, Eric Dinello. One of the participants there was the Wisconsin Insurance Commissioner, Sean Delwig. Top bond insurers and their state regulators held a productive meeting in New York yesterday, according to Mr. Delwig's spokesman, as to how they might participate in the U.S. Treasury's rescue plan. Talks will continue. The second largest bond insurer in the country, AMBAC, is headquartered out of Wisconsin and is regulated by Mr. Delwig. Delwig's spokesman said that the group, which included at least some of the major bond insurers, Delwig himself and Eric Dinello, would continue to evaluate all the options with participants. Dinello, of course, oversees the country's largest bond insurer, MBIA, which is headquartered in New York. Last week, Dinello suggested that bond insurers could substantially be strengthened by the tune of about $10 billion to $20 billion if they were able to participate in the Treasury plan. Here's a sentence. You don't usually hear these nouns and pronouns in one sentence: International Monetary Fund and World Insurance. However, the International Monetary Fund has issued a report urging Bermuda to bolster insurance sector regulation. To best monitor the more than 1,400 reinsurers registered in Bermuda, the IMF is recommending to the Bermuda Monetary Authority that it should extend its regulatory framework, urge the industry to improve transparency, boost regulatory staffing, and periodically review its relationship with the industry. In a report released last week, the IMF said Bermuda's regulatory framework for insurers had improved dramatically. However, the report found that largely self-supervised system that's in place in Bermuda is, in contrast, based on hands-on risk-sensitive supervision. Insurers are ranked, according to the IMF, by risk likelihood and impact, with riskier categorizations attracting increased supervisory attention. With Bermuda's insurance sector writing about $116 billion in gross premiums in 2006, for example, effective supervision of this industry is a must, and the IMF has encouraged local authorities to continue to extend oversight by fully rolling out its risk-based framework to all four classes of insurers. The IMF said, given the global systemic nature of the companies headquartered in Bermuda, the insurance department should formulate a pragmatic approach, start closer cooperation with other authorities to implement group supervision. The IMF added in its key recommendations that subprime-related exposures are affecting or could affect Bermudan companies mainly through four principal channels: investment in structured products, financial guarantee portfolios, liquidity positions, and potential claims on professional, executive, and liability insurance. The IMF makes 15 specific recommendations on how Bermuda can continue to improve its regulatory climate. Some of them are: consider public disclosure of information about problem or failed insurers, provide formal guidance to insurers on its expectations with regard to remuneration policy for executives and directors, and establish disclosure requirement for derivatives or similar commitments. You can find the whole report on the IMF website. We'll go to a word from our sponsors and come back with the rest of the news.
Every day, the world wakes up and goes to work, pursuing the unique opportunities that lead the global economy forward. The complexity and close connectivity of today's global marketplace is a true modern miracle that can create unparalleled success. But it takes confidence, passion, innovation, and understanding.
Enabling opportunity.
Protecting capital.
Engineering innovation.
Investing in your future.
Ensuring continuity.
Finding the right balance.
It takes Aon.
From prehistoric time to today, man's progress has been marked by his ability to fashion tools and use them to his advantage. From early humans making tools from stone, man evolved and was soon trading with other men. Money evolved, and tools such as the abacus to handle complex money transactions were developed. By the end of the 19th century, machines such as the cash register began to appear. 100 years later, we have even better computer-driven machines which track stock, change prices, and automatically reorder. Meanwhile, the reinsurance industry has failed to embrace man's drive for progress. The reinsurance industry today would be as familiar to practitioners from the 1800s as it is to modern underwriters. An underwriter or broker from 1800 would settle nicely into today's business. That is, until now. For the reinsurance industry, pivot point changes everything. Soon it will be understood that the period before pivot point was as dark as the caveman period was before the abacus. Come and see for yourself if you don't believe. After a demonstration, you will understand what is possible.
You can be sure that the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation is aware of this news. This comes out of Detroit this morning. General Motors is suspending matching payments to employee 401k plans effective the 1st of November as the company continues to assess its staffing needs as part of its efforts to conserve cash. This, of course, amidst a deep downturn in sales. GM said the company could reinstate matching payments into the 401k program if business conditions improve. GM has lost $51 billion over the past 3 years and said in July that it would try to raise $15 billion in new liquidity through 2009 through a series of steps, including a 15% cut of salaried workers. GM declined to comment on whether or not it would need involuntary layoffs to meet the target for workforce reductions. As I mentioned at the onset, former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan is testifying. Here's some of what he's saying. He is saying that financial companies and markets should be more heavily regulated to prevent a repeat of, quote, a once-in-a-century credit tsunami. Greenspan is testifying in front of the House Oversight Committee. He said he reluctantly supports requiring securities firms that structure new investments to buy some of those new securities themselves and to put their own capital at risk. Greenspan said he's in a state of shocked disbelief over the failure of banks and other financial companies to police each other, as he and other regulators had counted on. That testimony is being carried live on American television. He apparently still retains some oracle-like status. In more pedestrian news, unless you happen to live in New Guinea, a 6.2 earthquake struck near Papua New Guinea this morning, not too far from Port Moresby. It occurred at 8:04 p.m. local time, which would be 10:04 Greenwich Mean Time. It was about 224 kilometers east of Wewak, Papua New Guinea. No immediate reports of damage or casualties or any tsunami warnings. The Chinese milk scandal is beginning to come to a head. China has arrested 6 people this morning for their alleged role in supplying contaminated milk to the country's dairy companies. The 6 suspects, who worked in a major dairy-producing region of Inner Mongolia, either sold melamine to milk suppliers or themselves added the industrial chemical to milk. Melamine used in plastics and fertilizer, of course, can cause kidney stones and lead to kidney failure. A total of about 4,000 children still remain sick. Authorities say that the middlemen apparently added melamine to milk they collected from farmers to sell to large dairy companies. The suppliers are accused of watering down the milk and then adding the nitrogen-rich melamine to make the milk seem higher in protein when tested. The Chinese news agency Xinhua said that the government in Inner Mongolia's capital of Hohhot asked police to launch an investigation into the sources of milk for China's largest dairy companies. The 2 larger dairy companies are the Yili Industrial Group and the Mengniu Dairy Group, both of which are headquartered in the region. So they may finally be getting to the bottom of this, and given China's record on dealing with executives who commit crimes, I'm sure that there'll be a swift and speedy and permanent resolution to this problem for these 6 people anyway. A little bit to the west, a huge explosion at an illegal fireworks factory in western India this morning killed 27 people. The blast occurred before dawn. It blew apart the workshop, which was set up in a home in a slum in the town of Deeg. 17 other people were injured. Deeg is about 120 miles northwest of Jaipur, the capital of India's Rajasthan state. And there was a sinking of a fishing ship, a 93-foot long ship called the, make sure I get the name here, the Katme, K-A-T.